Hi everyone, Al the Psych here. I have a quick video for you today that I've entitled Tolerating Anxiety via Guided Imagery. And this is for informational purposes only. Okay, actually, I haven't really done any specific research, read any reports on what I'm specifically going to talk about. So I'm kind of going rogue here. Okay, so I've been reading a lot about anxiety lately, and of course that means reading about exposure therapy as a method of treatment. And with exposure therapy, being able to learn to tolerate anxiety is one of the tenets of success. Now, I always like to use, in the past and even currently, I like to use guided imagery for dealing with many issues, and that includes dealing with anxiety. Uh, Now, that could involve many scenarios, for example, guided imagery for public speaking and numerous other social anxiety situations. Now, I'm speculating here, that's why I say my videos are for informational purposes only. But I think guided imagery might be more effective when it involves learning to be less anxious than not anxious, like less anxious as opposed to no anxiety whatsoever, and also to be able to deal with and tolerate anxiety via guided imagery. The idea about guided imagery, and I'll throw in hypnosis here too, is that if you kind of really envision it, your mind is kind of processing it as something that has actually happened. It's kind of like a memory, almost. Maybe not as intense as something that's legitimately happened. Um, let me explain my thinking here with a football analogy. I think this will make sense. Now, say a coach is giving his players a pregame pep talk, and he tells them that they have to play penalty-free football to win the game. Penalty-free football to win the game. What might the players think, either consciously or unconsciously, if they commit a penalty or two right in the first quarter? Okay? Could this be a setup for failure? Wouldn't it make more sense for the coach to use non-absolute terms such as, try to keep the penalties down? That way, players are not locked into this all or none scenario. If the coach told them, we've got to play penalty-free football to win right off the bat, they've made a couple of penalties. They might be thinking, hey, we've lost this ball game. Okay. Now, this is how I think this might also play out in social anxiety. So let's use the fear of public speaking, that scenario, because it's so common. If you go through guided imagery, to prepare for your public speaking, and you see yourself being absolutely calm and relaxed while you're giving your talk, what happens in real life if during your talk you start to feel your heart race a little bit, the heart rate increases a little bit, and maybe the room starts to feel a little warm to you. Um, you might just think that, oh, the guided imagery that I did didn't work. On the other hand, if your guided imagery included scenarios in which you envisioned yourself feeling your heart rate increase, and you tolerated that, or you felt the room was getting a little warmer and you envisioned yourself tolerating that, I think it would be easier. You'd have a better chance of regulating and tolerating the anxiety as you were giving your talk. You locked yourself into this all or none scenario. So I also think it would be easier to reframe the word anxiety as excitement as opposed to anxiety. This is kind of like a cognitive strategy. So reframing the word anxiety to excitement. After all, you really wouldn't want to be so calm that you put your audience to sleep. Okay, so the bottom line here is if you're going to use guided imagery and say, in the specific scenario we're talking about, um, giving a public speech or a public talk, the guided imagery that you might want to use leading up to that actual talk would include dealing with some issues of, yeah, maybe my heart rate is increased, or maybe I'm feeling a little jittery, or maybe I'm feeling a little bit warmer, and you see yourself tolerating it, as opposed to making a perfect scenario in your guided imagery to where when you get to the real situation and you feel a little twinge, it's kind of like, oh, it didn't work. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So you might want to practice, if you're using guided imagery, you might want to practice dealing with some of the little flaws and things that you would actually have to tolerate in the given scenario. Okay. Thank you.